Welcome to another episode of the Nintendo Powercast. This is NPC Live. I'm your host, N64 Josh. And it's really, really good to see you guys, hang out with you guys. It's been a fun morning, some fun Nintendo news. But we're going to tackle the question, how will Nintendo handle our digital libraries? We know there's a new system. They're not even really hiding it at this point. Like they're continually talking about the next generation system, and it doesn't seem like they're going to be going Switch Pro. That's kind of the vibe that I'm kind of getting from these investor meetings that have been that they've been having. And so, with that being said, if we're not going Switch Pro, the talk of what's going to happen with our digital libraries is, of course, kind of a question on everybody's mind. And so that's what we're going to kind of dig into with this. And I want to say what's up to Becca and Servant. And Servant's just right off the bat saying it's going to be Switch U because you will be paying for the upgrade fees. U is for upgrade fees. Got it. Okay. Well, there we go. So, I mean, let's kind of let's get into this question a little bit. And I've got the Nintendo Switch Reddit pulled up at the moment, and we can because I kind of wanted to see what some of the comments on Reddit were from, for this topic. And so first up, just looking at this tweet from Genki_JPN, it says Nintendo's president Shintaro Furukawa says they plan to make a smooth transition for customers from Nintendo Switch to next generation console by using the Nintendo account. There are currently 290 million Nintendo accounts across console and mobile. That's not a small number. That is not a small number at all. And so if you guys have been in the within the Nintendo sphere for the last few generations, you know that like your Wii library, you can no longer go and purchase things. They were accessible. Everything that you had digitally, you could move your like basically move all of your information from your Wii to your Wii U, and then you could have access to all those games on your Wii U. So it was but it was something we had to do ourselves. You couldn't just sign in and have that. Okay. Then the games that you had already purchased on Wii, they were tied to your account. So then you could, for $1 upgrade. Okay. Which I can foresee that potentially happening. But if that does happen, is there going to be reason for that? Is there going to be like deluxe or ultra HD versions of games? I don't even know where they go anymore with the verbiage, but like, let's say I have Mario Golf Super Rush and they do a next gen update for the game. Are we going to get charged for that upgrade? Kind of like Servant was talking about there. And so there's kind of a number of questions that we can talk about, but I think the most important thing is that we are getting our libraries will come with us. So that's good. Do we see, is it going to run similar to, like, I don't know if you guys play Xbox. I don't know what it's like over on the PlayStation side of things, but on the Xbox One, you could essentially fire up an older game and it would open the original Xbox menu, the 360 menu, and you would be on the 360. Like, not too long ago, like there's a few games I've gone and played on my Nate and I, actually, Nate, we were playing some Perfect Dark not too long ago via Xbox, and to access that game, when you select it, it opens up the 360 menu, and then you are playing on 360 servers, and but you're still on your, I'm on my Series X playing 360 games. So will Nintendo do something similar? Will it be the kind of thing where, like, we have a Switch icon on this next system, and then we can, select it, and that will open up the old Switch menu? Do they keep the eShop the same? How are they gonna do this thing? I'm kind of wondering. if it's going to be similar to Xbox or if it's going to be more unified. Personally, that's what I hope. I hope that we are going to be able to play and have access to these games just by downloading them to the next system. Servant says Switch upgrade. The Switch U upgrade to make all games 1080p and 60 FPS. I mean, I'm here for it. Corey B says, I wish the new Switch went with a radical design. It was a clamshell Switch SP. I like that, Corey. That's good. Over on TikTok there. Thank you for joining me. And let's see. Switch will have its own folder. There we go. Now folders make sense. I love it. That's great. But I mean, I do kind of hope that like we can just stay with where when we open up the next system, we don't necessarily have to go back into the Switches menu to play some of these games. I'll be okay with it if we do. It's not the end of the world. It's not that big a deal. But I'm just curious if Nintendo has something up their sleeve to avoid that being the case. Now, let's talk about a few things. This just got me thinking because a lot of the conversation that we're going to read here on Reddit is about backwards compatibility. Well, what does Nintendo do with the handful of games that we can only assume are going to run on this next system that require you to play with a Joy-Con? Do we think, chat, I want to hear from you guys. Do we think that the next system will be a hybrid and will still have some kind of detachable controller that allows complete backwards compatibility with the next system? Servant asked the question, how did the DS to new DS XL interface transition go? So the 3DS, the DS was the same situation as like the Xbox. If you put a DS game in, you opened up the old DS menu, and that's how you played. Now, that being said, it's a much older Nintendo, right? That wasn't when their system was essentially a tablet that I believe probably updates a little bit easier and should be a little bit easier to maybe have that operating system run both the Switch and whatever this new system is going to be. I would just assume anyway. Servant says next system will look 100% the same on the outside. I just want a Pro Controller shell like a PS Project Q. Interesting. So I don't know if you guys remember from back in the day that like there was a GameCube controller that was also a keyboard. And so I believe that's what Servant is getting at, that instead of having the Joy-Cons that aren't all that comfortable to play, I mean, it's fine. Don't get me wrong. And not a sponsor, but Satisfy Grip, which are great. They're in my Amazon store. If you guys go to n64josh.com/Amazon, you can see a bunch of my gaming recommendations there, Switch recommendations and cool mugs and all that kind of stuff. But there is a Satisfy Grip in there. That is the grip I use when I'm playing a lot of handheld. And it makes it feel more like a Pro Controller. Vandy over on TikTok says the Pro Controller is the best controller in my opinion. It is fantastic, no question there. Trust No One says it might be like how they did the NES controller and the SNES controller for the Switch. There's a possibility there. And if the system's backwards compatible, well, even if I mean, just kind of, just following the train of thoughts, you guys, is all I'm doing here. If the system opens up to a Switch menu, it would therefore be able to use Joy-Cons. And so the old Joy-Cons would still potentially work with the new system because you're just opening up a Switch menu at that point and playing the games the same way. That being said, we know that the Joy-Cons have had the issue with drift, right? That's been that's been a problem for quite some time. So over on TikTok it says not be new Nintendo Switch for years. Well, that I don't know that that is the case. There's even dates as soon as there was the speculation is between April 2024 and November 2024 is when we will see the new system from Nintendo, and I'm leaning more towards April. I think we're going to see this shortly after, uh, right around the fiscal year. I think the announcement will go out in January, late to mid January, with pre-orders taking place and the console launching either March or April. That's just my that's my my gut feeling. So we'll see if I'm correct or not. So let's see. Trust No One says, or they will just make them able to connect to the new system. So you have the option. Exactly. Yeah, exactly like that. Servant says, Switch U and MP4 on Metroid Prime 4 on 10/04/24. There you go. I like it. There that'd be just fine. But I mean, that could very well be the reason we haven't seen anything about um Metroid Prime 4. It could be, potential. I don't know that it'll be a launch title for this new system, but I think it will be in the sizzle when they start showing off what games are going to be coming out next. So, yeah, Sammerfan says a new Metroid for the new system. Hopefully, I'm right there with you. Get the Prime trilogy. The best thing about this, you guys, is the best thing about this is we're now going to have these massive collections of games, right? And the fact that they're saying you're going to be able to bring your old games over automatically, in my opinion, says that you're going to be able to it's backwards compatible, which means, you know, the amount of Zelda games are going to be available on the next system. Fantastic. The amount of Metroid games. I don't even know, what do they do with Nintendo Switch Online? That's been their, Xbox Live hasn't changed. Nintendo throws Switch into the title of their online, but then what happens when there's no more Switch? So I think we see the Switch. I'd like to hear from you guys. Do you think that we see the Switch name in this next iteration? Is it the, Nintendo's Super Switch, or, Switch 2, like, and is the Switch become like a staple that sticks with the company for a while, being that they're fully hybrid? And I think I think that's a very real possibility just based on Nintendo Switch Online alone. Vandy says for sure Switch, it's too big, and so I think it's possible. The thing they cannot do, and I know Servant's messing around by saying Switch U and all that kind of stuff, but I think I think they if they stick with the hybrid model, I think Switch is what dictates that. And I think we see them come out with saying the Nintendo Switch, 2, like just making it very clear. That's probably one of the easiest ways to do it. Don't say new, don't say pro, just say 2. Don't say super. Don't trust no one says Nintendo Switch 1 following Microsoft's naming system. Servant disagrees, says Switch name can't go on like the Wii name. Only Nintendo matters. We will see. Cryptic says, does that mean friend code's still a thing? They're still a cumbersome experience. They are. Over on Sammerfan says handheld / dock and TV play probably here to stay. I would think so. I would think because I mean, at the end of the day, I feel like Nintendo cracked a little bit of a code when they put out the Switch Lite, and the OLED. They were like, "Look, here are 3 SKUs at 3 different price points. We're gonna meet you wherever you're at. If you can't, if the other 2 price points are a little out of your price range right now, 199 for a Switch Lite, still very doable." And I think we see a very similar model going into the next system. We're going to see a standalone fantastic system out of the box. Then we will see a lesser model a few months later that that is strictly handheld, and then a potential pro. So that's just what I'm thinking. I again, it's just nothing more than an opinion right now, but they really did kind of crack the code with this machine, and they've sold so many. I don't know why they would change what's working. Obviously, you want to adapt and always be evolving, but maybe instead of looking at, like, they can lean into a few of the things they did right, and then we can see that happen again. So Servant says, no way Nintendo merged everything into one operation just to separate console and handheld development teams. I agree. Yeah, I don't think that is the case. I think they are liking the fact that they can put all the games on one system. It's literally the best of both worlds. Handheld experience is fantastic, albeit a little cumbersome if you got bigger hands. I know the Joy-Cons aren't the most they aren't the most comfortable at times, but that's what, the Satisfy grip, like we mentioned. But maybe they do. Maybe they just, right out of the chute, they're like, look, we've got the Joy-Con experience. If you like that, but we also are going to come up with a split Pro controller that, can also attach to the system, which I think would be a great way to go. Sammerfan over on YouTube says, no way they go back to a console only to make they no way they go back to a console only. They make too much money with handheld. Exactly. The Servant says, Joy-Cons are for children. Get a Pro controller. Hey, tell that to my Zelda Joy-Cons, all right? They think they don't think they're for children. So I want to jump over a little bit onto Reddit and see some of the thoughts over here. I know sometimes Reddit can be a cesspool, but from the few comments that I read already, they weren't too bad. And so the looks like the top comment says, I hope this is hinting at backwards compatibility. Lack of library transfer is becoming something of a deal breaker for me, especially when I look at Steam Deck's ability to play almost anything I already own on a PC. Until they say the words, you can play all Switch games on new Switch, I remain skeptical. And, then the conversation kind of moves towards, like, going strictly PC and Switch, because you can get almost all the first party games from the other two major publishers on PC now, and the Switch is Nintendo's the only one that doesn't have their games on PC. And does that change? Does that change over this with this next system? There's a chance. Moving on into the comments a little bit more, it says, yeah. So, right here it says, yeah, that's what I've already been thinking. I would miss many of Nintendo's first party games, but really my preference leaned more towards games available on PC. And but then it says I have a huge Switch backlog, so I'm in no rush. But when I get around to looking at something new in like 2 or 3 years, PC may be the obvious choice. And so, and the conversation here kind of starts leaning more towards, like, emulation and jailbreaking the Switch and some things like that. But I have both a Switch and Steam Deck, and I use both about equally for gaming. I also use my SD as my PC in general, the Steam Deck. I recommend considering both if you're interested at all. So I mean, there's that's kind of a good way to go if you want. But they're talking price, and Cryptic also mentioning price. Base Steam Deck is $400, which is popular and outputs at 800p. I would be okay with Nintendo having a pure hybrid console and having another SKU that is just a console. Interesting. So you wouldn't mind having both. I don't like personally, I don't know that I would like to see them try to get in the mix with just the TV box, similar to Xbox or PlayStation. I think for me, I would almost rather see them go more with like a like their own version of Steam, where we could play Nintendo games on PC, but but through their through their subscription service or whatever the case may be, and then that would work both on the console and on PC as well. I that would be I don't I know they love their hardware sales, but as software is kind of becoming king, and the physical, although a lot of us still probably collect Nintendo physical over anything else, how much longer is that going to be the case? When the the real question, I guess, really lies on retail, and what is that going to do? What how does retail affect the overall success of any of these consoles? I don't know if you guys have looked at recently at like the Xbox or PlayStation at like Walmart or Target. It's a ghost town. Like, the amount of shelf space is mostly headphones and controllers. The amount of software that they sell is minuscule. So, the Switch though, double. I mean, if you've been in Target recently, the Switch's physical games are double the size of PlayStation or Xbox. Walmart's the same thing. Walmart has a massive, at least the one in my town, is a huge amount of Switch games. But I think the majority of Xbox players are on Game Pass, and PlayStation has something similar as well. So it's an interesting time. Retail was the driving force of Nintendo's success from the get-go. From the after the Donkey Kong arcade, the NES was, they had to convince retailers to put the system back out there after the video game crash. And so it's an interesting time. Like, they have to have, the retailers still need to sell the consoles and some of the hardware, but as software goes more and more digital, we just end up seeing the cardboard games on the wall, which retail still gets their slice that way. So Servant asked the question, what if our current Switch doesn't change and it's just a new screen and dock? I have a few problems with that. Mainly the drift. The drift is out of control. There needs to be, I would like there to be an overhaul on the overall design of the Joy-Con. I think it would be nice to have options to have both this. If they're going to stick with a Joy-Con design, don't put the buttons above the stick on all of them. Give us some options for a different right side Joy-Con that's like, kind of like you were saying, like the Pro controller, where it's like it's just more comfortable to play in handheld. I don't think it's super ideal having to reach over that tiny the tiny stick on the Joy-Con right now. I get it for turning the thing sideways, but I don't know how many people are using Joy-Cons that way. Maybe it's a much larger number than I anticipate, but I don't think so. From the chat, Trust No One says, I think we maybe have 2 generations of physical games left. I'm leaning towards maybe 1. I don't know. The next Nintendo console may be, I mean, we talked about this with the 3DS and the Wii U, that the 3DS was probably going to be the last Nintendo cart. We might see one more. I mean, the thing is, there's companies out there right now that thrive on the physical sales, Limited Run Games, other companies like that. And so, and it's fun to get some of these collector editions and stuff, but I mean, they're still doing collector's editions. Look at like Starfield. It's just, you're not getting a physical game in one of them. You're just getting a code. So Yeah, and Servant just said outside of collector's editions, digital is the way to go. And I don't disagree as far as like ease of use. When I can fire up my Switch and be able to just jump to the game I want to play while I'm in bed and just play it, that's a win in my book. It's absolutely a win. So Trust No One says, because as soon as they get rid of physical media, things can get smaller and portable. Maybe even start partnering with companies like Google to cast games to TV instead. And that, yeah, it's very much a possibility. Servant says Drift has been around since 2017 and hasn't impacted sales. Why adapt now? I mean, it's honestly helped sales if you think about it. They're essentially a disposable device that they sell for $90. So, but eventually, that brand loyalty is gonna start taking a hit, right? You can only flex those muscles for so long before people start to stop opening their wallets. You know, I get it. The parts go to the cheapest bidder typically, but there are plenty of companies out there now boasting that their sticks will not drift, and I think it may. I don't know if they mention it in the marketing for the new system because it admits that there was an issue with the last one, but I wouldn't be surprised in the presentation where they like, if it's a Joy-Con, if you will, I can see it like being like, being put together just like out of the air digitally and talking about how the highest level of commitment to our controllers and blah blah blah, right? As a way of saying, hey, we recognize the drift, we'll take care of it for you, but they got to keep the PR speech going. Vandy over on TikTok says, I don't do physical copies. I'm all digital. Yeah, the ease of use is definitely there. Servant says, I got physical game in all three of my Final Fantasy um, uh, 16 editions. I mean, that's good. That may be one of the last. I don't know. Maybe not. Cryptic says one thing for sure: they have to make sure the marketing is clear. Nintendo does not want a Wii U situation. Yeah, yeah. And then I don't. You may have missed the beginning of the episode where we talked about that a little bit. But I think the best way for them to go, since Nintendo Switch Online is in the name for their online system, they're still trying to sell those things. They they are probably going to do something like the Switch 2. Just make it just abundantly clear that that that's you know what 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 the name they're going with. It's the Switch 2. It's not the Switch Pro. It's not the Switch U. It's nothing like that. It's just the just very very clear. Switch 2. Get it now. Don't buy the old one on accident. Becca says drifting is the worst. And Servant says, I want a first party split controller like the Hori moving forward. And I agree. I think that would definitely be something that we need. No question there. So, guys, that is going to do it for this episode of NPC Live. Thank you so much for hanging out, making these shows possible. I appreciate you guys so very much. Tune in tomorrow. Going to be starting a little bit earlier tomorrow, around 9 and 10. So hope to see you guys there, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye, everybody.